Today we are doing another episode of TFLride, our motorcycle podcast. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about Honda's entire current lineup of motorcycles, of which there are a lot.
Yeah, there's a ton to go through here. It took us a long time to put this list together. Kase did most of the work, so thank you, Kase, for putting all these notes together. But it should be a cool video. If you're looking at buying a new motorcycle, stay tuned because, there's a lot to go through here. Maybe you are decided that you want a Honda, you're a Honda fanboy. Maybe you don't know you want a Honda, but you just want to see what's out there. We're going to go through everything.
Yeah, and this being our motorcycle podcast, we're going to be pulling up some images here on the TV as we talk about everything. And the motorcycle category that we're going to start with from Honda is their sport. So not super sport yet, but at the bottom of the list with Honda's sport motorcycles is the CB300R. And that's a CBR 300R.
Oh, man, look at me.
Oh, yeah, he's already messing up.
Well, you know me, I just like to go for the sport bike.
Yeah, he goes for the full fairings immediately.
Yeah, so let's find the right one here.
Yeah,
there we go.
CB300R. So at $4,949, this is one of their entry-level motorcycles, their entry-level naked bike. It's got a 286cc dual overhead cam, liquid-cooled single-cylinder engine, so it's basically a dirt bike motor. 6-speed trans, and it does have inverted forks, 41 millimeter inverted forks.
I'm impressed by the inverted forks. A lot of budget bikes don't get inverted forks, and you can feel a difference riding at least on a sporty bike. If you're pushing it, you want inverted forks.
Yeah.
So, cool to see that on a budget bike under $5,000 you get inverted forks.
I think it's a pretty decent looking bike too, because you've got the gold forks, and if you find a picture of the front end, it's got a round headlight, which I think immediately just makes it an even better looking bike. You might be able to go to gallery. Oh, that is gallery. Weird. It's got.
I believe you. It's got a round headlight.
You can tell it's got a round headlight, or we can, at least from where we're sitting.
I also think it's cool looking because it doesn't look like a Honda, and I don't mean that as a rag on Honda, but a lot of their bikes, and every manufacturer does this, like Ducati, all their bikes are red. Honda, a lot of their bikes are
also
red, white, and blue.
Yep.
Yamaha's, a lot of them are blue. So the fact that you get this cool, blue tank with the gold forks and the gold bronzy wheels to match, I think it's a cool, unique look that, people might be like, what kind of bike is that? So, yeah. It's cool.
And now we can finally step over to the bike that you were trying to click on, which is a CBR 300R.
Which is a very similar bike, right? It's basically the same powertrain, different riding position, fully faired bike, and a little bit, not a price increase, a little bit of a price decrease, actually, $48.99.
So it's like $50 less.
Yeah, you don't get inverted forks on this one, though.
Yeah, oddly enough, the more aggressive looking bike gets the more old school suspension. But one thing I do love on this bike is the option that you can select to get the red bodywork, red, white, and black on this bike is good looking. They do a good looking fairing on this, and I'm not even a huge fairing guy.
Yeah, I would love to ride one of these. I had a KTM 390 that's kind of in this class, and there's, like the Ninja 400. There's some other bikes with bigger displacement. It seems like, at least in this low-power sport bike segment, Honda's kind of the lowest displacement out there. But I want to ride one. I think it'd be interesting to kind of compare. So I like small bikes. Small bikes are fun. So.
Super, super entry-level bike. If you were looking to get your first bike, either one of these 300s would be a really approachable bike. But honestly, you wouldn't have to step into that small of an engine. For your first bike, realistically, you could get away with having a CB500F ABS. So this is the next bike on our list. A step up in size. So this one, I don't love the styling on personally.
I think the 300 looks better too.
Yeah, I think the 300 looks better, but you get a lot more motor here. There's a 471cc parallel twin, which is an engine that we've done a good bit of testing with. And the nice thing about that engine is you kind of have to wring it out to get the power out of it. So if you do wring it out, you get plenty of power from it, but it's not the kind of thing that's going to surprise you. If in order to get full power out of this bike, you have to ask for it.
Yeah, you're not going to flip it backwards.
No.
We've had, like Kase said, we've had a good amount of experience with this engine, actually. We have the CBR 500R in the office right now, which we're going to touch on in a second. But we also, last summer, we're also going to touch on this bike, had the CB500X.
Yeah.
And neither of us are like crazy dirt riders, and I don't know if you remember out at that Revzilla ADV Fest, I did that like obstacle course thing with the tennis balls. If I were on an Africa Twin, I would have been terrified. But the fact that you know, it's low power enough that even me, as I wouldn't call myself a beginner rider, but off-road I'm certainly not super skilled, and I felt confident on it. So
yeah, and then, you know, for $6,699, you get a very usable bike, one that's happy on the highway, can keep up with traffic, no problem at any speed. And it's just a bike that you could grow into a little bit more, spend more time on before you feel like going the next step up.
A little bit of a bummer that it's all black, though. The styling, like the headlight's not great, and I don't love all black bikes.
No, I'm with you there. But if you want to avoid all black, still want that motor, though, you can get the CBR 500R, which is a bike, like we said, that we have at the office right now, $7,199. Same engine, very similar bike mechanically. But this is kind of an interesting motorcycle because it looks very sporty and very aggressive, but it's not.
Yeah, which is great because there's a ton of people out there that have been lusting after a motorcycle for years. They don't know how to ride, but they want to look fast, right? So this is the bike you go with. It's, you know, plenty enough power to keep up with traffic. We rode this down to Denver, nice 45-minute ride, no problem at all. If you're a really experienced rider, you're probably not going to have a ton of fun on it. But it's certainly capable of cruising around. And for your first motorcycle or even your second motorcycle, it's a great pick. And it looks really good.
Yeah, it is a really good looking bike. It looks fast. People who don't know motorcycles walk up to it and think, wow, that's a mean bike right there. But it's actually got very compliant soft suspension. And the handlebars have a rise to them, so you're not actually leaned over that
really
far.
Tucked over. It looks like you would be, you're gonna sit a little more leaned over than on the F model.
Right.
But I mean, you just rode it, and it was great.
Yeah, it's a good bike. And then you step up, not an incredible step up in displacement, but a big step up in how much bike you get. To the CB650R. So now we're going from a parallel twin engine to an inline four. So this is a 649cc inline four. Bike costs $9,299. And once again, you get the round headlight. So this is personally my style of naked bike. I like the round headlight. Still looks very modern though. And seeing those four exhaust pipes coming out of the front.
Yeah,
that's how you know you're in for a good time.
It's a pretty good look, I gotta say. I'm curious what's gonna happen with this bike because that new Hornet was just announced. Unconfirmed coming to the U.S., but this would be the bike it replaces if it does make it here. So maybe not the year to buy one of these, or maybe it is the year to buy one of these because you can get a really good deal on it.
And if you like an inline four, because like when Yamaha got stopped making the R6, started making the R7, a lot of people were upset to see the inline four go in place of a 270-degree parallel twin. That's kind of the same transition that we'd be looking at here.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't blame people for wanting to go with the inline four because inline fours are great motors.
Yeah.
You've got an R6.
I do. They sound good. They're fun to ride. The power band is awesome. Like I said, just kind of up in the air right now what's going to happen to this bike. And there's a few like that on this list. And also if you want more power, there's another option in the CB lineup, which we'll get to in a second. But this is kind of your middleweight option in naked sport category.
Yeah. And then the next step up from this guy is going to be that same engine, but this time in a full fairing bike. So we're looking at the CBR 650R. And
a little bit of a pattern here. They use the same engines in naked bikes and fully faired bikes.
Who would have
thunk? So the CBR 650R. These names are confusing, so I don't know. Like, we do this all the time. If you work at a Honda dealership, I don't know how you keep track of all this stuff. CBR 650R. Like Kay said, same power band. It's going to be the same thing as the CBR 500R, basically, where it's a little more sporty. You've got that fairing up front, but very similar riding characteristics, and still a sport bike, not a super sport where it's going to be uncomfortable for any commute.
Yeah, so very aggressive looking, not quite as aggressive as the super sport bikes that we're about to get into in terms of riding position. This one is $9,799, so it's $500 more than the naked version of the bike. More bodywork, understandable. One other thing about it that's kind of disappointing is also only available in black.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with Honda doing the all black bodywork.
Yeah.
But
wouldn't be my
you
go-to.
mentioned this in the video you did with the FZ07 and the CBR. We don't buy motorcycles in the US as practical vehicles. We buy them as toys. And who wants an all black? Like, I know there's some people out there, but me and I think most people, if you're buying a toy, you want it to be bright and stand out and like have some character to it. Whereas, I don't know. Yeah, like make an all black, like the bike we're about to look at. Let's jump into that bike. It looks really good in all black, and there's certain bikes that it works for, but others not. If you're going to call it the black edition, it better be all black.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and this is a badass bike. This is a bike that can get away with being all black because it's a beast.
Yeah.
As it should be for $12,999. This is an expensive motorcycle, but the CB1000R, 998cc inline 4.
Yeah, that's a big motor, big powerful leader bike motor, basically in a naked bike. Pretty good tech too. You've got a 5-inch TFT, you've got a quick shifter, adjustable levels on that. You do have ABS, so yeah, you're right in the modern times. You've got everything you need, and I think this is a really good looking bike. Those engine cases look awesome. The tank looks awesome. And again, this is one that I wanted to ride like 2 years ago. We did a big trip out to LA to, ride the trail.
Test out a bunch of different bikes.
A bunch of different bikes early on in the bike channel. And this is one I wanted to ride but didn't get a chance to. It's just, it seems like a fun bike.
Also another really good looking naked bike. I like the fact that it's not too angular. Once again, round headlight, even behind the rider's seat. The bodywork is fairly rounded. It's, this is a sharp motorcycle.
Yeah, I think the tail section looks pretty cool too.
Yeah.
Not a fan of that rear fender that goes over the tire, but those are easy.
Those are always the
enough
first things to go.
Yeah, they're easy to unbolt and take right off. That exhaust looks pretty cool too for a stock exhaust.
Yeah,
so
it's not too bad.
We were just complaining about all black bikes looking bad. This one looks pretty sick.
This is one that gets away with it.
Yeah.
It's always, there's the exception that proves the rule, and this is that one.
So anyway, $13,000 for this bike here. Not the cheapest bike in the world. That's, getting up there for naked sport bike pricing. But
you get a lot with it.
Yeah. But
yeah, and again, a good looking bike, which I don't say about a lot of modern bikes.
Yeah, I mean, we've said this before on the podcast. To find a bike that both you and I think looks pretty good is hard to do. So good job, Honda.
Now we get into your kind of bike.
Yeah, it's the Super Sport. We're going to start with the one I'm super bummed out about because it's the CBR 600RR that Honda has not updated.
So even when we tested, or you tested this bike out in LA, it was pretty dated, and that was over a year ago.
That was like a year and a half ago. Yeah. So the story with this bike is Honda made an all-new version. It's got updated technology, updated bodywork, and I know it's available in Japan. I'm not sure where else, if it's available in European markets and whatnot, but it's not available here in the US. They're continuing to sell the old one, and I rode it. It's a great bike. We have a full review on it, but when I was riding it, I just constantly had in the back of my mind that,
why is this not the new one?
Yeah, there's a new one out there. Why am I not on the new one? So, specs as to be expected, 599cc inline 4, fully adjustable suspension, 41 millimeter inverted forks, electronic steering damper, and a sick red, white, and blue color scheme according to the notes Kase put together here.
Yeah, I really like the red, white, and blue on this. I think it's a good looking bike, but again, I mean, at a price of $11,999, you would expect to get the newest, the most modern. It's a lot of money to spend on something that's old. And other shocking thing about this, it's an extra $1,000 to get the ABS model on this bike.
Yeah, that's
which
pretty
is
crazy.
A steep price for getting ABS.
And like I kind of get where Honda's coming from, because like Yamaha, for example, they killed off their 600. But then you look at Kawasaki and they have new shiny pretty ZX6Rs that do the same thing. So different manufacturers have a different standpoint on it, but it is true. People aren't buying these as much as they used to. But I just always get bummed out when there's a bike available overseas that we don't get here.
So from the standpoint of someone that has an R6, what are your thoughts on the CBR RR?
Honestly, it's like I'd be on a CBR 600 if I bought one in the first place. At least in my eyes, with a track bike, pick a brand and stick with it, because then you end up buying spare parts and all this other stuff. So like if I wanted to switch to a Honda now, I'd have to get rid of my bike, but then get rid of my whole stash of parts too. Like I have brake pads for seasons and all kinds of stuff. So I'm sure it's just as good as my R6. I built kind of my track day setup around my R6 because I got a good deal on it.
Does it seem like the R6 is kind of the go-to though for a track bike? Versus a CBR?
At least at the tracks I go to, it seems like it's split between Yamaha and Kawasaki. There's a lot of Kawis out there.
Yeah, a lot of Ninjas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Moving up in that list, we have the CBR 1000 RR, which is your leader bike. Yeah,
also a badass bike. $16,499. So again, it better be. It's a lot of money, but an extra $300 if you want the ABS model. Again, a 998cc inline 4, like we've seen already. 43 millimeter fully adjustable fork. Again, features like an electric steering damper. It's just a bigger, badder CBR.
Yeah. Honda, can you put some more pictures on your website? I'm having a hard time getting, all you have is these side profile shots. Put some more photos up of your pretty bikes. It'll help you sell them, I promise.
Now, we have to move on to the motorcycle that has absolutely, hands down, our favorite motorcycle name that's ever been put on a bike, because it's just so heinous.
Yeah. You want to go for it, or you want me to do it?
This is the 2022 Honda CBR 1000 RR-R Fireblade SP. And actually, there used to be an even better model, which was the 30th anniversary
a year or two ago,
version.
there was the 30th anniversary edition, which was just, imagine going into a parking lot and being like, hey, what kind of bike is that? Oh, it's a Honda CBR 1000 RR-R Fireblade SP 30th anniversary edition. That takes so long to say. So, it's a funny name, but I really like the graphics on the SP that you get when you jump up from the sick graphics on the other two bikes that we looked at. It's just a really cool look. You have the HRC graphics on there, and it's just, I don't know, it's kind of unique.
Fireblade is a kick-ass name that's been around for a long time, so cool to see that stateside. Again, like you said, really cool graphics. $28,900, and this is a 999cc inline 4-cylinder, but a beastly motor. Forged pistons, titanium connecting rods. It's got, of course, a quick shifter, electronically controlled Olin suspension, full color TFT, a titanium Akrapovic exhaust, 330 millimeter Brembo brakes with Stelema calipers.
Yeah, this is as badass as it gets if you want a really fast bike from Honda. If you want the fastest thing they make, get this.
Get the damn Fireblade.
Yeah, it's quite a bit more expensive than the non-Fireblade version. But like Kase just listed off, it's got all different internals. It's it's the same basic engine layout, but it's a different engine.
It's not expensive for no reason. They put a lot into that bike.
It's not just pretty paint. So very cool engineering. And I'd be a little afraid to ride one of these.
Well, imagine what would happen if you scuffed it with your jacket or something.
Or like my boot getting onto it. I'd want to cry. So.
Now we get into a type of motorcycle that Alex loves. We're getting into cruisers.
There's actually a couple of bikes in this cruiser list that I almost bought.
How about that?
Yeah.
That's pretty special. Well, because you've actually ridden. Did you ride the 500 or the 1100?
I rode the 1100, but I wanted to buy either a 300 or a 500.
Okay. So we'll start.
I'll tell you why in a sec. But.
We'll start with the 300. $4,699. So another entry-level bike. Actually, the really nice thing for this as an entry-level bike is seat height, 27.2-inch
Yeah.
seat height.
And you're still like mid controls, so you're not going to feel real weird with your legs all out
Yeah.
in front of you.
So this is a very approachable bike, especially for a smaller rider. 286cc single cylinder, so like we've seen in the other 300 bikes that we've talked about so far. You can get an ABS model, which the price on that rounds out to $5,000. Standard forks and dual shock, so it's not a cornering bike. It's not a sport bike. You wouldn't expect it to be, given that it's a cruiser.
Yeah. It's in the name. It's a cruiser.
Yeah.
I like the look of it a lot. I think the front tire on these has always stood out to me. They're just so fat and meaty.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's got a really cool look to it, even for a 300.
It is a good-looking bike.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
I like that you mentioned that it's a good starter bike. These are so popular when you go take your MSF course and get your license. These are like one of the go-to. TW200 is usually there.
Yeah.
There's usually some other dual sport. And then they usually have a plethora of Honda Rebel 300s. So a very good bike to kind of step into. It's got a low seat height, like you said, and not a crazy amount of power, comfortable. What else could you want?
You can make a similar step up that we saw with the sport model bikes. You can get the Rebel 500, so for $6,399, you can once again get that 471cc parallel twin. And $300 extra if you want the ABS model. And then for another $200 on top of that, you can get an SE model, which gets you a headlight fairing, fork gaiters, a special paint color, so a couple extra bits. But yeah, the Rebel 500, once again, I would say I'd probably go for the 500 over the 300. That's interesting.
Yeah, so
that's why you wanted one?
That's why I wanted one, because I saw this specific
that.
build, and I was like, oh my god, that's the coolest thing I've ever
I
seen.
could 100% see you riding that bike.
Ha! Look at that.
That's cool. I like that. That's very unique.
Yeah. So I don't think it'd even be that hard to pull that off. You pull the rear fender off the bike, you're good to go. Powder coat the tank, the bars, the swing arm, do some graphics.
Yeah. You'd have to hoop the frame, Springer seat on it. Obviously, different bars. Looks like different swing arm. I don't know if those wheels are different than a factory. Well, they're looks like wire spokes. So
that's the cool part about this bike. You don't need to hoop the frame. You can pull the rear fender off.
That's how the frame is from the factory?
Yes.
No kidding. That is cool.
That is cool.
Not that it's hard to hoop a rear frame, but
I'm pretty sure. This was like many years ago that I was looking into this, before I even worked here. But if I remember right, the frame is like that from the factory.
I could see you storming around town on that.
Yeah, that thing's sweet.
Yeah.
So anyway, when I mentioned I almost bought one, that's why, because I saw that specific image and thought they were just the sweetest things.
And then the top of the line for the Rebel lineup is a Rebel 1100 at $9,399, or an even $10K if you want the dual clutch transmission model. So this is something pretty unique that Honda does. They offer dual clutch, so basically automatic transmissions in some of their motorcycles.
Yeah, this was one of the bikes we rode on that LA trip I talked about a few minutes ago, and we did have the DCT model out there. I put a decent amount of miles on it in LA traffic. My brother lives in LA, so I cruised this down to his place to like grab some dinner with him and, just off camera, kind of riding it around town. And it was perfectly fine. I'm usually not a cruiser kind of guy, but I really did like this bike, although I wouldn't get the DCT.
No.
It was a little unpredictable. It would shift for me and I'm sure if I spent enough time with it, I'd figure out the modes.
Yeah, and you would understand.
Yeah, understand kind of how it works. But I'm going back to that point of what we use motorcycles for here in the U.S. They're toys, so...
Don't need an automatic.
Yeah, you want to have fun and shift through all the gears. So.
Yeah, it's also a 1,084cc twin, so I don't know. If you're not willing to learn how to use a clutch, then that much motor in a bike might not be for you.
Yeah. Some people are very opinionated on this bike. I don't know I'm curious what you think, because it's not a V-twin. Do you have any...
Well, so the cool thing about this parallel twin is that, so it's basically the same twin that you get in the Africa twin.
Yeah.
And this is a 270-degree parallel twin. So it has the same firing order as a 90-degree V-twin.
Okay.
So it gives you some similar lumpy character as a V-twin, obviously visually walking up to it.
Though.
I mean, no, it's not exactly the same because there is a certain rock
Yeah.
to a V-twin that you don't get in this. But in terms of the exhaust note, you still get some lump to it, so they sound good. 270 parallel twins, just like the CP2 motor. We just did a video comparing parallel twins, and yeah, those 270-degree twins are great. I love V-twins, but at the same time, I mean, if you're a diehard for a V-twin, then you're probably also a diehard for an air-cooled motor, and you're probably also looking at something that's American. So I think, what Honda's doing with this, it's a cruiser, it's a good-looking bike, it's a good engine. I think if you're looking at this, you're not that old-school guy that has to have the V-twin, has to have it air-cooled. Yeah, I think it's a different audience, in my mind at least.
Yeah, that's fair.
I wouldn't buy this. I wouldn't see people buying this instead of a Harley. I think if you're a Harley person, you're a very specific demographic. And if you want this, maybe you just want a comfortable bike to get around on.
Fair.
You don't need it to be any specific brand or image.
Totally good with that.
So that's how I feel about it. I'm not bothered by the parallel twin. I like parallel twins. But if you do want a V-twin, you can in a Honda. You could get it with the Shadow Aero. So this is at $7,799, one of their more retro cruiser bikes. It's got more old school fairings, sort of like an Indian. It's
really old school looking.
Yeah, it's very old school.
Which I think is cool, actually.
Yeah.
You don't see that too often.
It's not bad. It's just for me, if you're going to go down that road of having those old school swoopy fairings and a lot of body work and bright paint and everything, if you're going to go down that road with a cruiser and the chrome and everything, I'd want more motor in it because it's a 745cc 52-degree V-twin, also a liquid-cooled V-twin. So again, if you're going for that old-school V-twin...
That's a small motor for
this is a smaller displacement motor. It's also liquid-cooled, so it's not... I don't know. It's not what I would be looking for if I was trying to get this kind of bike. This is where I think you get that difference. The Rebel, I understand. I think it's kind of a different thing than this. This, on the other hand, is more of that Harley-style bike.
Yeah.
Also, $400 extra for ABS on that. Or you could get the Shadow Phantom. So this version of the Honda Shadow is a little bit more stripped down, doesn't have that traditional bodywork that the Aero does. $7,899. Looks a little bit more modern, but same engine, really same components, just more blacked out and a little bit more sinister looking.
I think you're right. I think there's probably better picks in that category with more engine underneath them if you want something like that.
Not to say that Honda doesn't make a V-twin that has more displacement, because that's exactly what this is. This is the Fury ABS, $11,449, so it's decently expensive. But it's got a 1312cc 52-degree V-twin. Once again, liquid-cooled. Honda just can't let go of that liquid cooling on their bigger bikes.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen one of these in person.
I think we might have seen one at the Honda warehouse, but...
Yeah, but not actually
on the road.
Yeah. An owner's bike.
Yeah.
I think it looks sweet, though. Like, the yellow with the chrome is a pretty cool look. And like you said, if you want a V-twin from Honda that actually has a decent amount of power underneath it to move you down the road, this is the one to go with. But if you're looking at this bike... I don't know. You're probably looking at other bikes instead. I don't know.
Yeah, you're probably looking at American bikes instead because that's very much this style. This is a very American style, and I think a lot of the people that go for this style of bike are partial to American engines, that kind of thing.
This just looks like that TV show, American. What was it? The Chopper Show.
Yeah,
it looks like
Orange
something
County
they would have made. Yeah, just with the front wheel and everything.
Very swoopy. Yeah, sharp teardrop tank and funky wheels and a little bit of the hood on that long headlight. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, definitely weird. What's up next? Touring.
Oh yeah, we have a staple for Honda for such a long time. This is another one of their flagship bikes. This is the Honda Goldwing, which has kind of been the industry standard for touring bikes, hands down, and as it should be, at a starting price of $25,600. It's a very expensive motorcycle.
Yeah, this is like such a well-known bike that it's almost a saying. Like people say, it's not your father's Goldwing or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, this is like the bike that people picture when they think of an old school touring bike.
My dad has
Your dad
a Goldwing.
has a Goldwing. Exactly. His is a little different.
His is a little different, yeah.
Go check that video out. It's easy to find. It is the most popular
Yeah.
video on TFL Bike, and it's a sweet bike. So go check that thing out. But 1833cc 6-cylinder engine.
Yeah, big motor.
Yeah, and you kind of see the more standard model over here. If you're watching on the right, you can get a touring model, which comes with a top case, just like the Rebel 1100.
Yeah.
You can get a DCT, which actually in this bike makes a little more sense, I think.
Yeah.
Still, I'd go with a manual. If you're doing a lot of highway miles, you're in 6th gear anyway.
Yeah, who cares?
So, yeah.
But I think, like you said, if you are an older rider, which realistically, if you can either afford this bike or if this is the kind of bike you want to ride, you probably are an older rider. Maybe then a DCT would be nice to have. But on the flip side of it, for an older rider, there's a lot of tech on this bike.
There is a lot of buttons when you sit on this. The last time I sat on one of these was at the motorcycle show we went to.
Oh, yeah.
And we
Way
did like a
long.
little tech roundup. Yeah. And holy crap, are there a lot of controls and a lot of buttons and like a car-sized navigation screen.
Yeah,
in front of you,
7-inch TFT.
It's got
gives
CarPlay.
You Apple CarPlay and
Yeah.
Android Auto. It's also got an electronically controlled windshield. It's got heated seats, of course, cruise control, all that. The craziest thing about this bike,
It has a seatbelt.
it's got an airbag.
Has an airbag.
It's basically a car, yeah.
Yeah. No, it doesn't have a seatbelt, but yeah, it's super weird. Where is the airbag?
I think it's just built into the fairing. So basically,
So
if you
don't
run into
crash
something,
into your own fairing?
yeah,
Why?
you don't crash into the dashboard.
Into the dashboard, yeah.
Yeah. So, pretty interesting. Yeah, Goldwings have airbags if you spec the airbag model, which is over
Okay, so it's
$30,000. Yeah. The airbag
I'm going to have
version
to
of the
look into
Goldwing's
that a little
expensive.
more. I wonder if
Oh,
there's...
pull up a picture. There's pictures of Goldwings with their
Are there
airbag
videos?
out. Probably. But, oh yeah, there is. Look at that. Is this guy just going to airbag go off on him?
This is an old YouTube video.
Back in the early days of YouTube.
Let's see here.
Is this a real guy that they're putting? Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a real
he's moving.
person. That looked okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I guess to just protect you if you start to fly forward a little bit.
there you go.
I'm surprised I
Motorcycle
know
with an
about
airbag,
that.
dude.
Interesting. Okay.
You wear your airbags, but
I
this
wear
one-
mine. Yeah. This one's
built in.
like wearing the bike. So
Yeah, the bike is wearing
the
an
bike
airbag.
is wearing an airbag.
Now, should we move on to the adventure bikes?
Let's
Get
move,
off of this
let's
gigantic
move on to the adventure bikes. Yeah, that sounds
touring
good.
bike. So, the way that the adventure bikes in Honda's lineup start out is that they start out not very adventure-y, really. So, the CB500X ABS, a bike that we were talking about earlier, $7,200, 471cc twin. So,
Yeah.
same engine we keep talking about on all these 500s. It does have nice inverted Showa forks. It's got dual disc brakes, so it's got some decent components.
Which is
but
a
it's,
new thing. The one we tested didn't have dual
Yeah.
discs.
but it's only got 5 inches of travel. So, and it also comes with not very aggressive tires. The one that we had actually had some more aggressive tires.
Yeah, it did. But that was, I don't think that's an option from the dealer. I think that was just like spec'd by Honda for the one we were riding.
Yeah.
It's a gravel road bike.
Yeah.
It's like, I forget, was it Chicken Corners or something? That trail
Oh,
we
yeah.
did? Like, it'd be great on that in Moab,
I thought we took the one that we did on the
trail
monkey
and
and
on the trail and the monkey. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Maybe
the
I have
trail.
the name wrong.
the
Yeah.
trail that we did on the trail.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think that was Chicken Corners. But yeah.
Like a trail like that, it's a dirt road.
You
It
can do
can
a
go
mild
through some
trail on it.
exactly. Yeah, it can go over some small rocks, through some little pond creek crossings or whatever. But you're not going to be like jumping over logs
Yeah.
and stuff with this.
It's a decent all-around bike, though.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
the headers are, pretty low. You don't have like a skid plate protecting them. So
Yeah.
it's an overlanding bike, let's call it that.
The new color scheme on it, though,
Pretty
is
sick.
actually really good looking. They had a bunch of these when we went to Honda's facility to go pick up the Grom and the CBR that we have right now. And
Yeah.
it looks really good.
Yeah, a lot better. The
black
one
and
we
red
had,
one that we had was
yeah,
fine.
it was fine. But this is it kind of looks like a military bike or something.
Yeah,
And
it looks pretty sweet.
I dig it. Yeah. So yeah, did you mention the price on that one already?
Yeah, $7,200 for that. And then if you want to step up, you can get the NC 750X for $8,700. So it's a good bit more expensive. And this is kind of a strange bike. So this is a 745cc parallel twin. Also an option for a dual clutch transmission. And that model is $9,300. The weird thing about this bike, and they don't have pictures of it on their website, but there's a bunch of storage built into this.
Yeah, you can fit a full face helmet in where the tank normally goes.
Yeah.
So the fuel tank is under the rider's seat, and then let's pull up a picture of that.
Yeah, you can put a full face helmet locked basically in front of the seat that you actually sit in. So like you said, where basically the fuel tank would be on most bikes. Pretty weird.
Yeah, it's really cool though. I mean, it's smart.
Yeah, it is smart.
So I wouldn't really, Honda calls this an adventure bike. I think it's more like a sport touring bike or a commuter bike, especially with the storage, throw your lunch in there, ride to work, pull your lunch out, throw your helmet in there, lock it up, you're good to go for the day.
But that's a bummer, locking away your helmet in your bike, because carrying your helmet into wherever you're going is the way that people know that you ride a motorcycle.
People know you ride a motorcycle? Well, that's why you have two helmets. You have one for the girl you're going to pick up on
the girl
road.
you talk to about the motorcycle helmet you're holding.
You're like, I have a helmet locked in my bike for you. Yeah, there you go.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a cool bike. One of the Honda delivery guys, like the guy that runs around LA with the box truck delivering motorcycles to all the different publications, he's helped us out getting bikes before. And I asked him one time, what is your favorite bike that Honda makes? This was it. So
yeah, I'm sure there's a pretty devoted following to this bike. I don't know how many of these they sell every year, which is why I said it's kind of an odd bike, not in a bad way. It's just interesting. It's different.
Yeah, it's different, but very practical. You've got mounts for side cases and that storage that we talked about in where the tank would normally go.
Yeah, it's a potentially very useful bike.
Very utilitarian, that's for sure.
But now we get onto a bike that is, without a doubt, an adventure bike. The Honda Africa Twin, which is $14,500. So it's an expensive bike, and you get that same 1084cc parallel twin that we were looking at in the Rebel 1100. Once again, option of a dual clutch transmission for $800. But when it comes to off-roading, this is a lot more serious than those last couple of bikes we were looking at.
Yeah, this is, if you want a bike that is plated and street legal and can take you coast to coast across the U.S., but also do it all on dirt, this is the one to go with. Yeah, it's obviously they make motocross bikes and dirt bikes and all that kind of stuff, but for something with like street instrumentation and where you can put a lot of luggage on it and two people and
be comfortable
the whole time. Yeah, this is the way to go. This is their flagship adventure bike. So
yeah, and you get 9 inches of suspension travel on it, so it is pretty serious. The standard model has a 5-gallon fuel tank, which is not bad. You also have selectable ABS, cornering ABS, cruise control, 6.5-inch TFT, which once again has CarPlay and Android Auto, so you can be pretty comfortable on a long journey. You can see an image of the TFT right there. It's a really good-looking display.
Yeah.
And then you can also get the Adventure Sports ES model of this bike, and that gets you the really cool Africa Twin paint scheme, which is red, white, and blue, really sharp. And that also gets you a bigger tank, electronically controlled suspension, and the pricing kind of depends on...
Gold wheels, too.
The gold wheels. The pricing depends on if you get a dual clutch model. But, yeah.
This bike, I could see a use case for the dual clutch a little more. Like, if you're on the road, you want to be slamming through your gears. If you're off-road, I could see how some people maybe just want to focus on balancing and what they're rolling over and not be so worried about what gear they're in. So
not having to think about slipping the clutch, not risking stalling so much. That part could be nice.
Although for a lot of people, that's how you control the bike off-road.
Yeah, it is.
Slipping the clutch. So it could go either way, I guess.
Pros and cons, I guess it depends on what kind of riding you're doing.
Yeah.
Especially if it were to unexpectedly change gear on you, that could throw you off. Mm-hmm. So I think you can make an argument in either direction.
Yeah, which is why they sell the bike.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can pick.
Yep.
Now we get on to the most important category of Honda motorcycles.
I've been waiting for, what has it been, like 30 minutes or something to do this.
Yep.
This is your favorite category and ours. So what are we starting with? The Navi?
Yeah, so we're going to go from the bottom in terms of price to the top. So the Navi comes in at $1,807, and people get really upset every time we say that.
Yeah, guess what? Every single bike on this list, we've given you base MSRP pricing without destination, without freight, and without taxes and dealer fees. So yes, it will cost you more out the door than $1,800, but so will every other bike on this list.
Yeah, there's a lot that is dependent on where you live, what dealership you're working with, what incentives they have.
What state you're in.
If you were to walk into a dealership and buy any one of these motorcycles, we don't know what price you could get exactly. So,
but the thing that's standard across the board is the base MSRP.
The base MSRP. So
that's what
with destination, it's at least a $2,000 bike. Still unbelievably cheap. This is one of the least expensive things that Honda makes. CVT trans, 109cc air-cooled engine. It's not a spectacular bike to ride. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. As long as you stay below 45-ish miles per hour. I mean, we rode one of these to do an MPG test and compared it to the Monkey.
Yep.
And this actually ended up with worse fuel economy than the Monkey, even though the Monkey is faster, bigger engine.
You're just ringing it out.
Yeah, the CVT was just, the bike was screaming.
Granted, it's not a highway bike, and we took it on a highway.
So, a little bit.
Yeah.
We weren't on the highway.
No, not for long. But we were still, we were on county roads that were 55-mile-an-hour roads, which is not what this bike is built for.
No, not at all.
I had a Ruckus in college, and I don't know if this were out when I was in college, which one I would have bought. I really don't, because I like the look of the Ruckus better, but this is cheaper. So I think there's always a space for affordable transportation.
Honda's also trying to push modification on this.
Oh, yeah.
Which is kind of the cool thing. You can modify any one of these mini motos to the moon. So, they're kind of supporting the aftermarket on this as well. You can modify the hell out of some Navis. This is one that Alex saw on the reveal for it.
There were a few custom Navis at the launch event for the Navi, but this one was ridiculous and not very practical. This is a blurry picture, but you get the idea. They had some more affordable ones that you could actually do for a reasonable amount with sound systems and graphics and cool wheels and stuff. This they probably threw like $30,000 at. Which is crazy for a bike that is supposed to cost under $2,000. My favorite part about this whole build was the bubble visor they put in front of the headlight.
Yeah, it's a helmet visor.
Yeah, it's a helmet visor. They just absolutely killed it. So it almost looks like a Grom when it's done up that much.
Yeah.
It's people always love the custom scene of Honda mini motos, and doesn't stop at the Navi.
And speaking of Grom, that's next on our list in terms of ascending by price. So the Grom starts at $3,500. It's an extra $300 if you want the ABS model. 124cc single cylinder, 5-speed transmission these days. Used to be a 5-speed. A couple years ago they came out with this, used to be a 4-speed. A couple years ago they came out with this generation. Now it's a 5-speed, which is nice. Doesn't actually really increase your top gearing by much. It just gives you a little bit extra in between.
Yeah.
Your top gear is pretty similar gearing to what it used to be. What is going on
with the nose
under the headlight?
I know. I don't know. So if you scroll down a little bit, like this one doesn't have it. The one that you rode didn't have it. And you rode an SP, so that must be new for this year. Probably an option if I had to guess. But that is
like a little extra fender.
Yeah, it's like a high mount dirt bike fender almost for your Grom.
That's weird.
It is weird. I can't tell if I like it or not.
Yeah.
It might grow on me. We'll see.
Groms are cool though. You can do a bunch of stunt riding on them. People absolutely ride the hell out of these Groms. Also a really great starter bike, or if you just want to cruise around town on something fun or modify a bike that's fairly affordable to get parts for.
Yeah,
the community around it.
We did a video on one of
awesome.
these. Was that both of us? Was that at SEMA or was that just
me? I saw that bike, but I didn't do a video on it.
Okay, well, then I did a video on it. We do a lot of videos here. I can't always remember who did what. But same thing as the Navi. I mean, this is really what started it all, was the custom scene for the Grom. And there are so many new companies and brands that have made bolt-on aftermarket parts that go right on the Grom. And there's a lot you can do with these. It's just a cool platform, and the community around them is awesome. So if you want a bike where there's a Facebook page out there and you have tons and tons of owners talking about what they've done, and tons of support forums and stuff, the Grom is one of the best bikes you can go with, hands down.
This bike is approachable for literally anything that you might want to do with it. Modifying it, racing it, stunt riding it, whatever you want to do. And there are some people out there that are just physically too big to ride a Grom, understandably. If you're a fairly normal-sized person, you could get one of these as maybe a second or third bike and have a ton of fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, Tommy's tall. He fits on the Grom just fine.
Yeah, Tommy's 6'2".
Yeah.
If you're 6'8" and 300 pounds, this might not be the bike for you.
Yeah, if you're 6'8" and 300 pounds, there's probably not a whole lot of motorcycles.
Yeah, if you're 6'8" and 300 pounds, you can ride a Harley.
Yeah.
Or you can not ride, basically.
Or like a Can-Am Spider, or whatever those three-wheel things are.
Next on the list, in terms of price, is the Super Cub. So this is actually one of the first bikes that we got from a manufacturer to test.
Yeah, it was the first delivery.
Yeah.
It was this and the ADV.
And it was 1 or 2 years model before, so
yeah,
it was
a 20.
It was red and white. The current model is kind of blacked out with a red seat, which...
The old one's cooler. Let's see what the 21 looks like. Yeah.
Yeah, so the 21 is more like what we had.
Yeah, the 21 is like the retro one. They didn't make these matte black back in the day, but they certainly made them that looked like this.
Yeah, and the matte black doesn't look bad, but it, to me, doesn't really fit the character of a Super Cub.
It's supposed to be a retro-style bike, so make the paint
leave it retro.
match. Yeah. This has got the same 125cc engine as the Grom we just talked about, except it's got a 4-speed semi-automatic transmission, so no clutch.
Centrifugal.
Well,
yeah. It's basically
it's in the shifter. Like you're pushing the clutch while you're shifting gears in the shift lever. No hand actuated clutch.
Exactly.
And also keyless entry. You remember that with this bike?
Yeah.
Super weird.
Yeah, a funky piece of tech to have on a $3,800 bike. It does also have ABS, which is cool though.
Yeah, and all LED lighting too. So it's got all the lot of modern things, but in a retro, old school looking package.
I didn't really understand the love of Super Cubs until I saw some of the modified Super Cubs. Like, I don't know, have you ever seen the Repsol Cubs?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They're sweet.
You should, like, if we pull up, a Repsol Super Cub or, like people build these race Super Cubs. Like, you can see people racing them 2 up. Oh, no, those are 2 people on 2 different bikes. Who knows? Some crazy stuff could happen on a race-built Super Cub. People also turn these into bobbers, and there's some crazy things that people do with Super Cubs in terms of modification,
there's
which
some
is
awesome
cool.
videos.
Look at that.
This?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
There's some cool stuff that you can do with a Super Cub, I think, for me, that expands the excitement around it.
That's rad, dude. That's a new one, too. That's like the modern one that they chopped up.
It says C90, so it's not C125, apparently. Kind of hard to tell.
I mean, the engine case is the same as the new one, and it's got, like, the new style ignition.
Right.
I think that's the new bike that they... Because that's the same engine case as the new Grom and the Super Cub and all that.
Yeah. Interesting to do an off-road Super Cub, because that's basically what the next bike on our list is.
Next
bike on our list is a Trail
125,
which is a $4,000 bike. Also has ABS, same engine as a Super Cub. It's basically just like an off-road version of it. And this this is one of the coolest looking bikes that Honda makes.
I got stopped everywhere in LA on this bike. Everyone wanted to know what it was all about. That's interesting. I wonder if people were burning their legs off on the exhaust.
Oh, and they added that,
a little
or
plastic guard
accessory.
or something. Yeah. But yeah, once again, a retro styled bike styled after the old trail bikes of the 70s and whatnot. Looks just like them, but modernized with fuel injection, electric start. You still have a Kickstarter too, LED lighting all the way around, and proper gearing and a 125cc engine to actually get you around town and keep you safe in traffic.
Yeah.
They're hard to find, though. They're really hard to find.
But they're so cool to be around, a lot of fun to ride, and one really impressive thing, we also did an MPG test with this bike against a hybrid car, and we also compared it to how much it costs to operate an electric car. And we went about 50 miles from Boulder to Estes Park, so uphill.
Probably full pin.
Yeah, at highway speed, so this bike was buzzing.
Yeah.
And we got to Estes Park, put fuel in the bike to the same level that it was when we started, and it managed 133 miles per gallon.
It's crazy. And that was back when gas prices weren't a huge news topic. Now they are. So
133 miles per gallon.
Sips fuel.
Kind of hard to beat in any vehicle, especially considering how cool looking this is. And it's $4,000.
Yeah, and practical. It's got that back rack, so you can strap stuff down to it. It's got that same transmission as the Super Cub, so you have a heel toe shifter, which for a road bike, fine. If you're using it as a trail bike, we learned in Moab that you don't want a heel shifter.
It's not much of, I've seen video of people riding these pretty hard off-road, so it's technically possible. It's not a dirt bike.
No.
So, you got to kind of know that about it getting into it.
If you want a conversation piece, though, great bike. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that owned the old version of this back in the day, and they just have a huge feeling of nostalgia, and they just need to own the new one to bring back some memories. I'm curious what you guys, if any of you have tried to buy one of these, let us know in the comments. We've heard that it's really hard to buy one, and that's here in Colorado. So I'm just kind of curious, like we have this, it's kind of the ideal spot to own one of these. So if you're like on the East Coast or the West Coast, not in Colorado, and you've tried to buy one of these, I'm curious what the lead times are.
Yeah.
Or markups.
I know they're hard to get.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's the same everywhere. And then finally, the last mini moto, probably, I would say it's my personal favorite.
Oh, it's definitely, it's not my favorite, it's the best one. It's just hands down the best one. It's the Honda Monkey. At TFL, we currently own two of them. Tommy has one of them. I have one of them. It's a 125 or 124 cc air-cooled single cylinder. Basically the same thing as the Grom. Mine and Tommy's have the older 4-speed, although you can get it now with the same 5-speed as the new Grom. It took them like an extra year to get that into the Monkey. $41.99.
It's the most expensive of all the mini motos, but
the best built though,
as it should be.
It's got a metal tank. It's all the components on it just feel
metal
awesome.
Tank, metal fenders, really nicely made and stitched seat. Yeah, it's a really well-made bike. Feels really high quality. Comes with ABS standard. So for that extra couple $100 on top of what it costs you to get a Grom, this is a nicer bike.
Yeah, I totally agree. The Grom's a great bike, and
arguably easier to modify the Grom. A bit more aftermarket support. There's a lot of aftermarket parts for the Monkey too.
There's more for the Grom, but there's plenty for this. I mean, if you want to do a custom build on this, there's plenty you can do.
Yeah.
I thought someone stole my Monkey like a week ago, actually. I was riding through our little town where we both live of Lafayette, which is not a very big town. And I saw a blue Honda Monkey that was very loud and had a really cool custom welded air intake off the right side of it, cruising down. And I was like, that's my bike right there. And then, he rode by. And there were a few differences, so I was able to tell it wasn't mine. But definitely scared the crap out of me. Have you seen Wee Man's Monkey?
Oh, yeah, I have actually.
It's sweet. It's a little chopper.
Yeah. Look at that.
Yeah, here's the man. So
That's cool.
Wee Man's got one of them, which I think is just pretty rad, fully custom. It's pretty sweet. I forget
What did
who
they do
built
the
his.
frame on that?
It was
Frame looks
Roland
way
Sands, so
Oh, word. Yeah, well,
they can do whatever
Roland
they
Sands
want.
does a lot of nice work.
Yeah,
So that's not surprising.
pretty sweet.
All right, now we're moving out of street bikes into scooters. We have to mention them. I mean, this isn't TFL scooter, but we'll run through them.
There's a couple cool ones in here.
True, especially the last one, which we'll get to last. But it starts with the Metropolitan, $2,600.
I thought that was the cool one.
Is that the cool
I
one?
think the Metropolitan's pretty cool.
It's 49cc, kind of looks like a Vespa,
Yeah.
but it's not. You know what it does have? It has combination brakes, so if you hit the rear brake, it will also engage the front brakes.
Wow. There's some pretty custom ones of these too.
Are there?
If I remember right. I think, what people do
Oh, that is cool.
is they'll take a front end of a Metropolitan and the back end of a Ruckus and slam them together.
Huh.
And then you got a pretty cool bike.
All right, I can get down with that. That's cool.
That's pretty sweet, right? So it's like
Yeah.
a stretch Ruckus, but in a Metro platform, which you don't see all that often. Also, a number of people that I ride at the track with use these as pit bikes, which is pretty funny. So there you go. If you want a retro-looking scooter, exactly like Kase said, a Metropolitan is the way to go.
Or you could go for the Ruckus.
Or you go for the Ruckus, which is the better one to buy.
Yeah.
Because it's just cooler. It's got the 2 round headlights like a Jeep.
Just like a Jeep.
Just like a Jeep. Yeah, it's basically a Jeep.
It's basically a Jeep Wrangler.
It's
$2,900.
It's a 2-wheel Jeep for $2,900 and probably even more customizable than the Grom.
Yeah. There's an insane number of parts that you can put on these. It comes with a 49cc single cylinder, but if you know what's up, you put a GY6 behind it, and you can spend crazy money on high performance GY6s. You can spend $4,000 or $5,000 on a GY6 that's race built, titanium, whatnot, and make these bikes do close to 100.
So cool, way cooler looking than the Navi. But more expensive than the Navi and not as fast as the Navi. So a little bit of a weird pick, but I had one of these in college. I rode it bone stock for a while, loved it. I stretched it. Didn't love it as much after I stretched it. It was really cool, but it just wasn't as fun to ride.
Doesn't work that well.
Yeah. There's the classic Honda scooter that's been around for forever. And I'm sure you've seen it before.
Now, we'll mention this next bike as quickly as possible so that we can move on from it. It's a PCX. It's $3,900, so it's $1,000 more than a Ruckus. And
ADV 150. Here we go. We reviewed this bike. I just want to breeze right past that PCX. People gave me crap in my Navi video for not mentioning the PCX.
Oh, really? Is there a dedicated PCX following?
I guess so. They had I had like a little segment of that video where I went outside and I was like, let me show you the Navi and the rest of the Honda Mini Moto lineup. There was a Grom, there was a Monkey, there was a Navi, there was a Ruckus, there was a Metro, and there was a PCX.
So even Honda didn't want to show the PCX.
No, the PCX
it
was there. I just didn't talk about it. And there were like 1 or 2 comments that were like, why did you not mention the PCX? And
well, here. It's also 157cc.
there you go. We mentioned it.
So we covered it.
And then you've got the ADV 150, which we called in our review like the Africa twin of scooters, which I think is still kind of true. People disagree with that. But
those people are dumb. $4,300, right? But that gets you the Mac Daddy scooter from Honda, 149cc. So it's a ripping beast. I mean, this bike is shredded.
Dude, it's got dual shocks with piggyback reservoirs.
Yeah, it's got sick, nasty Showa remote reservoir rear shocks with 5 inches of travel, which Honda says is the most in its class. It's also got mad storage built into it.
Yeah.
And the remote reservoirs on the rear shocks say Showa on them because Showa is really proud to have their name on this machine.
Yeah. This was it was a fine scooter. I mean, it
was faster than the Super Cub.
Yeah, and it looks
unsurprisingly.
It doesn't look bad. I mean, if you're dead set on a scooter, sure, but get a mini moto instead.
Yeah, but also just get a trail or a Super Cub.
Yeah, like scooters were back in the day, I thought, like, I say back in the day like I have so much knowledge, but I used to think that scooters were like, all right, you don't know how to ride a motorcycle, but you want easy parking, you want cheap transportation around a college town or whatever, and you don't want to learn how to use a clutch. You just want to get on and ride. But now there's bikes that you don't need to know how to use a clutch. So that argument is no longer on the table.
If you can't be bothered to select gears as you're riding, then maybe you should drive a car.
Yeah. I agree.
I mean, whatever. If you want to ride a scooter, go for it. Or just,
Yeah, start fighting us in the comments below. Yeah, I'm sure you're going to disagree with us, but...
Please light us up in the comments about how wrong we are. Let's go to the dual sports.
The dual sports, huh?
Yeah, sticking with street legal until we get onto the dirt bikes.
Oh, I'm in the wrong... There we go.
Yeah, you messed up. So, dual sports... start with the CRF 300L. So at 5,349 models, we once again get the 286cc single cylinder. You can get an ABS model for another $300. 10 inches of travel, so it is fairly dirt bikey, but it's kind of a heavy bike. It's 306 pounds. Which is always going to be the trade-off with a dual sport. They're always going to be heavier than a dedicated dirt bike.
They've got street equipment, lighting, batteries, all kinds of crap. So,
turn signals.
Yeah, pretty self-explanatory. Yeah. A dual sport is a bike that you can take on the trails, but it's also street legal. So if you don't want a trailer and you live near a trail system, it's a great option to go with.
Yeah, you could also do the very popular CRF 300L Rally, another
Tommy
hard bike to get. Yeah,
bike.
Tommy did want this bike. $6,099. Again, ABS is an extra $300. This bike gets you special body work and a windshield. You get a bigger 3.4 gallon tank. So some nice extra goodies to have on top of the regular CRF 300L.
You got a very funny looking front end too.
Yeah, it is funny because you get those uneven headlights.
Yeah, and big windscreen to keep some dirt off you as you're going down the trail. So yeah, a more premium 300 option basically, but
also heavier.
Also heavier, but I don't think it's just for off-roaders. Like there's plenty of people here in Boulder that ride dual sports that never see the dirt. Like they're just a popular way to get around. Definitely. And this is a cooler looking dual sport. So if you want to stand out from all the other CRFs parked in a parking lot.
Yeah, because we have a lot of bad roads around here, so soft suspension is nice. We have a lot of dirt roads, so a slightly knobby tire doesn't hurt. So yeah, it's just a bike that could go wherever. Or you can get a much more dedicated dirt style bike, which would be the CRF 450 RL. And this is a bike that we had here at the office for a long time.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time on this bike. Andy rode it. You rode it.
Yeah, I think you'd argue you spent a little too much time on this bike.
Yeah, I spent too much time on the road on this bike.
Exactly.
So
we did a big 2-hour ride from he's rolling his eyes, from the Revzilla campground in what was it, Black Hills?
We went from Sturgis to Mount Rushmore and back. On the way there, we were less on the highway, but on the way back, the weather started to turn. So we took the highway, and we were on the highway for a while.
Kase was on the most compromised bike. It was a Tenere 700, an FZ07, and a CB500X, and then Kase on the 450 RL. And he was not having fun.
No.
A great bike. Andy loved it. But it's not for doing a 2-hour on-road ride.
It's a dirt bike.
It's a dirt bike.
It can go down the highway. You can do it. If you have to ride on the street for long distances, it's not a great bike for it. Not comfortable at highway speed. It's wrung out. It's
basically a street legal dirt bike with motocross power.
And with enough gearing for you to be able to ride on the highway. Although I'm pretty sure that this version of the 450 Unicam is a little neutered in this bike because it's not a race bike.
No, it's not full on, but
it's meant to be able to go long enough, not be so stressed that it's going to need to be rebuilt every other time you ride it. It's also a lot heavier than the other versions of the 450. It's 291 pounds. Yeah, and then on the top end of top end,
It's not the most expensive. But if you want an ancient bike that's been around since before Kase and I had driver's licenses, get an XR 650L.
If you want an off-brand KLR, you could get the XR 650L, $7,000, 644cc, air-cooled single. You do get more than 11 inches of travel, but it's a pretty porky 346 pounds. So this is a heavy bike, big old-school couch of a machine.
Yeah, I think it's funny that you can still buy a bike brand new that looks like this, that has like such a square taillight and boxy
Fort Gators.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Single-sided disc in the front. And just, it's ancient looking.
It is ancient.
I went to camp when I was like 8 years old, and I learned how to ride a dirt bike at this camp. And the guy that ran the dirt bike program, this is what he rode. And this is back in like 2006. So, yeah, it's long in the tooth.
There you go. Now we get on to actual trail bikes, and we start out with two bikes that Alex is particularly fond of. So I'll let you take it away.
Here we go. This is the CRF 50F, which is not as exciting as the one I'm going to get to in a minute, but still a pretty cool bike. This is the kid's bike, right? If you want to get your kid, if that's you and you have a 450 or whatever, and you're like, oh, I got to get my kid into this, this is what you start him on. It is a 50cc air-cooled single 4-stroke, and it's as simple as it can get. $16.99, so pretty affordable, which is good because if you're buying a bike like this for your kid, chances are they're only going to fit on it for a season or two. So, you don't want it to break the bank. But why I think it's so cool is because Honda's realized that people are not just buying these for their kids, they're buying them to have fun with, and they're totally playing into that. So previously, you could get one of these bikes that
just in the red
looked like every other Honda bike out there, just smaller. Now you can get it with a pink seat, pink and purple graphics, and all white bodywork, which is just an epic, epic look. And that brings me to the 110, which they did a similar thing with. So the 110, a little more advanced, still
a very advanced bike for a serious rider.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So still a kid's dirt bike, basically. Maybe their next bike after the CRF 50 we just looked at. More power, more size.
Or if you're an adult who likes to party.
I've owned two of these now, and I totally will buy a third if I can find one. They did the same thing. They did a teal seat, white bodywork, teal graphics, and they're just killing it. They know that, people aren't only buying these for their kids. They want to stunt them. They want to use them as pit bikes.
I mean, to be fair, I think some of these different, more kind of retro color schemes that are like 90s power sport vehicle colors, like the teal and the turquoise and pink and stuff. To be fair, I think these might maybe be like the girls' version of the bike.
No, they're my version. Not a chance, dude.
Oh, I'm not saying that I would only ever pick either one of these in these colors.
Yeah, I don't know. You might be right that they wanted to come out with a version for girls, but why didn't they do that 10 years ago then? Like, why are they just doing it now when these things are exploding?
They're getting with the times.
Because now there's pit bike, like adults are racing these now.
Yeah,
there's like adult pit bike races.
There's like 110 racing leagues.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know.
$2,600, you could do worse.
Yeah, it's also got electric start. It's got a gas light. It's got a check engine light. So
it's more than most of my bikes have.
Yeah. A lot of instrumentation. I'm obsessed with these for some reason.
Yeah. Now, if you're not quite as cool, you can get a CRF 125F. Still a small, very approachable, basically kids bike. 125cc air-cooled single, 4-stroke, 4-speed transmission. Again, you can kind of just keep going up in size for your kids. 17-inch front wheel, 14-inch rear. $3,400.
This is the first bike in the dirt bike segment that I think if you're like a really small adult and you've never ridden a dirt bike before, you'd be pretty comfortable on one of these. Yeah. The 110's way too small for any size adult to learn on.
Maybe a teenager.
That's a toy.
Almost a teenager.
Yeah, this can be a little more practical as a trail bike. So yeah, $3,400, and they also make they make a big wheel version of it too.
Yeah, with a 19-inch front wheel, 16-inch rear. So you're getting into more, almost full
2-inch
size.
bigger wheels, basically.
Yeah,
than
almost
this version
full size dirt bike wheels. That's $3,800.
Yeah, so $400 price increase to get the big wheel version, and a lot of manufacturers do that, where they have a small wheel and a big wheel of the same bike, basically.
Yeah, and then you can step up to a CRF 250F, and this is a full-size adult bike. It's light, nimble, decent amount of power, depending on what kind of riding you're doing. It's a good trail bike for a lot of riders. You 250cc air-cooled single-cylinder, 4-stroke, 5-speed transmission. Not super heavy, 265 pounds, and it's $4,900, so it's affordable.
Yeah, I think this is the bike that like most people should be buying, but don't. Like everyone's like,
I need a 450.
I need a 450. I need the motocross bike. But in reality, you're not pushing that bike to its limits, and you probably could become a much better rider on something like this. Andy, also, XR100s, he's a big fan of them. So
it also depends on what kind of riding you're doing. Some people ride places, doing hill climbs, desert riding, whatever, where you want more power.
No, there's always a use case.
If you're doing techie trail riding, a lot of what we have, like the single track out here in Colorado, honestly, being on a lighter bike is probably going to be better than having that extra power. But yeah, it depends what kind of rider you are and where you're riding it.
Exactly. There's also, let's move on to the CRF 250RX, which is basically a more performance-oriented version of the 250s. So similar in size and everything, but you get a lot more power out of the R version.
Yeah, so the RX is $8,600. Are you on the full-on R?
No, I'm
still on trails.
Yeah, I meant to click.
Oh, my God.
I'm just getting confused. Like I said, there's a lot of models.
So 250 RX, $8,600. You get a lot more power than the 250F. So supposedly, according to published reports, about 37 horsepower versus 23. So nearly double the power, even though they're both 250s. And you get better suspension, different ECU settings, different gear ratios, all kinds of stuff, hand guards, side stand, larger fuel tank as compared to the motocross version of the bike, and also 238 pounds. So this is actually lighter than the 250F.
Yeah, so quite a bit of a price increase over the 250F, but like you said, quite a bit of a power increase too. So the numbers are similar, but they're two totally different bikes. You need to be a pretty good rider to feel comfortable on one of these.
Yeah, well, to max it out, you would have to be pretty good to outride that bike.
Yeah, so this is the RX. There's also an R version, which we'll get into in a little bit. But the R, I'll give you a little hint of what the R is. The R is like their motocross bike. When you see people in arenas jumping these things with a crowd watching, televised and everything, they're usually on the Rs.
Yeah.
The RX takes a lot of that similar
performance
and engineering,
but adds it to a trail bike.
So a little bit of a softer suspension. You get a little bit, the ECU tuning's different, side stand, stuff like that. So
yeah, because it's made for you to ride on a trail.
Yeah.
You're not gonna rip it around the track and then
have a pit crew take care of you.
Exactly. So similar, you can also get a CRF 450X. So this is a $9,800 version of the 450, and it has some add-ons on it, like a headlight, a few extra things to this bike, which make it a bit heavier. It's 275 pounds. Not as bad nearly as the RL, which is the street legal version. But yeah, this is kind of a bigger, heavier version of the X.
Honda says that the steering geometry is a little different, so it handles better, on road than the 450R would.
It's supposed to be a bit more of a long distance.
Yeah, it's got a headlight. It's not street legal, but it's got a headlight on it. So if you get caught on the trail, a little bit while the sun's going down, you'll be all right. Yeah,
if you're not riding as long distance, you can do the CRF 450RX instead of the X, and that is $9,900. It's a little bit more stripped down, so it's a more aggressive trail bike. No headlight, a few less items to make it lighter, a little bit higher performance. So 251 pounds, you get different tires, different suspension setup on it.
Side stand. So just like the 250 RX, you have a more trail-friendly bike with the general platform of the 450.
Yeah. And now we get on to the actual motocross bikes, and that starts with a bike that you used to own.
Yeah, except mine wasn't a motocross bike. It's the CRF 150R, which is, again, a bike that's been around for a while. People are begging for this thing to be fuel injected. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with that. $5,300. It has a... Where am I here? A 150cc liquid-cooled single-cylinder Unicam engine, over 23 horsepower, and a bike that is really small.
It's not a slow bike.
No, it's really powerful.
When you bought this and I hopped on it, I was like, oh my God, this is a 150? Seriously?
Yeah, you hop on a 150F and then a 150R, and you're like, holy crap, how do these have the same displacement?
Yeah.
Yeah, so mine was, I converted it to little 12-inch slicks. I've since gotten rid of that bike, but it was basically a road racing little mini moto sort of bike. And it was a blast. They're a really popular pick for that, but they're also super popular for kids who have a pretty good amount of experience. You got to be a ripping kid to be flying around a motocross track on one of these. And then they also make an expert version, which is basically bigger wheels, longer swing arm, higher seat for an extra $200.
Yeah, which is not bad.
Yeah.
And then you can go up to a CRF 250R. So this is the motocross 250, similar to the 250 that we were looking at before the RX. But this is the full-on motocross version. So stiffer suspension, so you can rip those big jumps. 249cc liquid-cooled single-cylinder, 4-stroke. It's a 5-speed transmission, 229 pounds, so really light bike. $8,200. And this one is going to be more stripped down and more lighter weight because, again, it's a track bike. It doesn't need the side stand and some of those features that the trail versions have.
Yeah, that's your full-on 250 motocross. That's as badass as it gets in the 250 class.
Yeah, and then you can step up to the most entry-level version of the 450, which is the 450 RS. So at $8,800, this is the entry-level 450 motocross bike. So not quite as specced out as the full-on R model, but it does have adjustable suspension. It's got 12 inches of travel. So, it's a big bike and it's a serious bike.
Yeah, not everyone wants to drop all that cash on a 450. So if you want to save yourself a little bit of dough, you'll still have a great time out on this. If you're competing and racing, you probably want as good as you can get. But if you're a casual weekend warrior or whatever, this would be great for you.
Now, for an extra $800, so $9,600, you could get the full-on 450R, which gets you even more suspension adjustability. It's just nicer components overall, and then you can go on to also get a 50th anniversary version of that bike for $300, which gives you special graphics and gold wheels, which is really cool.
Gold wheels is really cool. For some reason, the anniversary edition doesn't have a gold chain, but that's an RWE. Never mind. Yeah, it's a cool look. I love the blue seat. My 150R that I did a build on, I put a blue seat on, which is something Honda used to do back in the day on some of their older models. And I think it's a really sweet look. And then you've got, your white number plates, so you can throw a number on there.
Super sharp dirt bike.
Yeah.
But not quite as sharp as the RWE. So RWE is an absolute monster. It's $12,400, so you get the best kit on this bike that you can possibly get. A hand-ported head, which is nice, a Yoshimura exhaust, you get DID wheels, you get a gold chain. I wish the wheels were gold too. Special seat, special graphics, a lot of really nice parts on this bike, special coating on the forks. It's a really, it's their top dog dirt bike.
It's kind of a bummer. That one looks like the top dog.
I know, so the gold wheels.
Yeah. They should have, if they threw gold wheels on that other one, it would have been killer. Anyway, we've got two more, right?
Yeah, just two bikes left. So these are Honda's Trials bikes, which is just a really interesting type of motorcycle. So the base Trials bike is a Montesa Coda 4RT 260R. It's $9,200 So it's not cheap, 259cc single cylinder, and you can actually select engine modes that adjust your throttle response, so depending on how much traction you have. Also, this bike only weighs 170 pounds, which is a cool thing about a trials bike. So it's really lightweight, and as you can see, you can do some crazy stuff on it.
Yeah. And it's got the lowest seat height out of any bike on our list.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, these are sweet. I am way too bad of a rider to be able to do anything with these. But
They're cool, though.
watching these things on TV, it's awesome. There's some killer videos out there of people just doing like jumping head high over stuff, like onto concrete barriers and stuff. And it's like, how are you? It looks like it defies the laws of physics.
Ryan F9 did a cool trials bike video recently. Yeah.
I didn't see that. I'll have to take a look at that.
Yeah, it's rad. It made it seem more approachable than you kind of think looking at people ride them. But if you know what you're doing, you could get the Montesacota 4RT 301 RR race replica, which is also a really incredibly long name. Repsol, which is how you know it's good, $11,800 is 298cc single cylinder engine. So it's a bigger engine. You also get adjustable suspension. And this bike weighs even less than the other. It's 160 pounds. So it weighs as much as like a Trail 70.
I don't know much about trials bikes, but if you do, you probably, if you're that into trials bikes, you probably know what brand you want to go with, and you don't need to watch our podcast.
Yeah, we don't need to tell you.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. That was a lot of motorcycles and a lot of time.
Yeah. How about that?
How many of you are still with us right now?
Yeah, that's a big list of motorcycles. I mean, Honda is obviously a beast of a manufacturer. They make a lot of bikes. They sell a lot of bikes. So that is everything in their current lineup.
Here's my question for you guys. What's missing from their lineup? Is there anything that other manufacturers have that Honda is kind of missing out on? I don't know. I haven't given that enough thought, but that just popped into my head. And
maybe like a more middleweight adventure bike.
Yeah, like a Tenere competitor or something to compete with the middleweight KTMs and probably.
And maybe like...
Because they have like the NC750X, but that can't do anywhere close to what a Tenere can do off-road.
No.
And also... the Touareg.
Touareg. And I wouldn't mind also seeing a more retro naked bike. I mean, I know
like something
they
like
have
the XSR,
round headlights.
what Yamaha does, or...
Yeah, exactly. Something like that would be cool too, but then we would have to make even more coverage on it. Yeah. Which actually, that would be something.
The one I'd love to see is that CRF 300L with a big wheel. Like that rally, 300L rally with a big wheel kit, like our TW200. That would be sweet.
Oh, like fat tires?
Yeah, fat tire.
That would be cool. Why don't they make fat tire dirt bikes anymore?
I don't know.
Well, I guess there's a couple, like, a few sort of fat.
Anyway, if there's anything, I just want to know your thoughts on that down in the comments. So if you think there's something that Honda should be making that they're not, I'd love to hear about it. And head on over to alltfl.com so you don't miss anything. And do you have anything else?
No.
Is that it?
Catch you in the next video.